In fact, let's see, yeah, Ronald Searle, an unbelievably great cartoonist. Here's a book called Souls in Torment, which I used to have as a kid. It's really just amazing drawing, and I would scrutinize these pictures, and I was profoundly disturbed by them, because very odd things were happening in these pictures. This is one of my favorite cartoons where it's a hotel room and somebody's putting out human feet for the night instead of their shoes. Ronald Searle did a series of cartoons about St. Trinian's, this private girls' school where they really mistreated the girls, and the girls were very, very bad. There was one cartoon in particular of a little girl hanging by her wrists in a dungeon while two middle-aged women look in at her through this barred window and say, "Little Maisie's our problem child." This is a very dark, disturbing cartoon, and as a kid, I loved it. And I spent part of my adulthood redrawing this cartoon in different form. I did this one, it's with my character Bongo. He's always tied up in a room by himself. And there's a little card here with a heart on it, and the two people looking through the door are saying, "The little fellow just won't respond to love." Now, this is about child abuse, it's about neglect, and it's about me ripping off Ronald Searle.
No, no, no.
Why, you little...
I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
My whole history in school is it's just like a downhill slide from the very beginning of school. The first year, I loved it. Once I learned how to read, fantastic, and then straight down. And by the time I got to high school, I was pretty miserable. I didn't like the rules, and you know, to be 14 in 1969 was the best time to be in high school because all this counterculture was going on. Great music, great anti-war protests. I love people like Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart and the Fugs, but mostly Frank Zappa. I mean, this album, this is absolutely free. This is his second album, and there's a line in here. I got this album when I was 13 years old. There's a line, "She's only 13 and she knows how to nasty," and I thought, yes, someday, someday that will happen to me. The great thing for me about the music of Frank Zappa was that he would take all these different styles and put them all together. He was influenced by R&B and blues and Stravinsky and Webern and Indian music, and he put them all together in one big funny mess, and he didn't take anything seriously, and that made a lot of sense to me when I was 14 years old. And I feel very lucky being exactly the age I am. It's just that for a moment in history, there was a bunch of kids at the same time who said, "Nah, we're not going for it." And what's really great is that after all these years, find out that, hey, we were right. You know, right now there is no counterculture. You know, as far as getting attention, The Simpsons is it. You know, when I was in high school, I was so upset by the grading system and by the unfairness and the rigidity of the rules that I vowed that I was never going to take another test again. And I was lucky. I found this school, the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. No grades, no required classes. Unfortunately, when you graduate, basically, you're on your own. I cartooned in college and wrote a lot of fiction, and I edited the school newspaper and wrote a lot of articles, and that's where I met Linda Barry, who's one of my biggest influences, and Charles Burns, and a bunch of other kids who were all alienated. Every creative weirdo in the Pacific Northwest, all like, gravitated towards this school and hung out there. It was fantastic.
We are stardust, we are golden, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden.
Linda Barry was drawing more about what the world was really like, and really funny, and she's absolutely brilliant. At the same time, Charles Burns, also a brilliant cartoonist and probably one of the greatest draftsmen working today, and he does his own take on childhood, which is even more horrific.
And we've got to get ourselves back to
I think what's great about pop culture and working in pop culture is that you can take media that in the past has been devoted to kids, comic strips, comic books, animated cartoons, and now begin to say some really unpleasant truths about the reality of growing up.
get ourselves back to the garden.
I think the appeal of cartoons is their handmade quality. Regular writing that's typeset is edited, and you can't tell how many hands have messed with it. But a cartoon in a newspaper is generally hand-drawn and hand-lettered. And to me, cartoons and newspapers are like little windows. They're like, there's all these gray columns of type of grim reality and unpleasantness, and then you get these little frames of joy. That's what cartoons are to me. Handmade, undiluted. What was great about Charles Schulz is he showed that you could work with very few lines and very simple ideas and still say things that actually had some resonance. And I was very inspired by that as a cartoonist. Peanuts is really an amazing comic strip, particularly early on when it was really about some of the grim realities of childhood and about loneliness and heartbreak. I mean, really, when you think about Charles Schulz and his work, it's about unrequited love. Everybody is in love with somebody else who's in love with somebody else, And I think the strip, with as few lines as it has, is one of the great works of the 20th century. I finally got out of school in 1977, and I headed immediately for Los Angeles because I figured, here is the center of all the garbage that the rest of the pop culture consumes, and I thought everybody here would be really sophisticated about it. I mean, this is where it's made, so they got to know what, garbage it is. And I got here, and the crazy thing about LA is they believe it more here than anywhere else in the world. It's amazing. You talk to people about these movies, and you think that they're kidding. And they really like this stuff. People here really like those movies. They really do. Those TV shows, those lousy TV shows, they're proud of them. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. LA is great if you have a lot of money. I had no money. I had a bunch of lousy jobs. I was very angry and upset with myself and with the way my life was turning out, and so I started drawing a comic strip called Life in Hell. And I did it as a little Xerox, hand-stapled comic book I would do in my crummy little apartment in Hollywood with the sirens and the police helicopters outside, you know, late at night, and I would be just fueled with rage and desperation and existential angst about my situation. Hence the title, Life in Hell.